Hey guys, and welcome to the first of many Update 18 videos, and we're going to look at the latest weapons to be released and try and get the most out of them. Today we're taking a look at a weapon that's actually been in the game for some time, but only obtained by those on PS4 for supporting Nefanyo in the last major event. We are of course taking a look at the Dera Vandal. Now I've got to admit, I don't regret supporting Alad V in that event and getting the Carrack Wraith from it, because I really like that weapon as well. But something about the Dera Vandals always made me want it. So now that it's obtainable as parts in the brand new sorties or through the trade chat, does it live up to expectations? Well, it's kind of what you would expect from a Vandal version of the standard Dera. Improved base damage of 33.1 with the majority 23.3 coming in the form of puncture, 6.2 as impact, and 1.6 as slash, making it a perfect weapon to shred the Grineer with. Add to that the improved status chance of 15% combined with a monster fire rate of 11.3 rounds per second, then you have a weapon that can also put out a decent amount of status procs. Now the critical stats, much like the original, they're almost non-existent, although they are higher on the Vandal, with a 5% critical chance, 200% multiplier, definitely not worth modding for crit though. But one of the things about the Dera Vandal though, is something that it shares with its base weapon, and it's just pinpoint accurate. It means that putting that rate of fire to work and absolutely pouring fire into enemy heads is easier than ever, and more effective than putting something like heavy caliber on there, since heavy caliber really hurts this weapon a lot, much like it does on the original rifle. Now, it's not without its downsides though, and that much is definitely true. That low critical chance, as I said earlier, means that crit builds are not at all viable on this, but you also cannot really rely on the random crits to try and help you boost your damage over time. Some rifles can rely on that with a slightly higher crit chance, but this is not one of them. In addition to that, the fantastic fire rate does mean that not only is the Dera Vandal pretty ammo inefficient, but with a lower than average reload speed of 2.4 seconds, it can feel a little clunky to use sometimes, and it's something that you can run yourself into trouble with if you're not careful. Plus you can feel like you're spending half of the match reloading, and that can feel very clunky to use. Now, the Dera Vandal is also not a hit scan weapon, meaning that the projectiles have travel time on them, which does take some getting used to, especially with leading the targets that you're firing at, especially if you're trying to pour on those headshots. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Dera Vandal. Now this doesn't come with any polarities as standard, so we're going to add 5 forma, which is going to be 3 Vs and 2 dashes. Now I've got 3 sort of variations on the build that I use for the Dera Vandal. They're all pretty well useful. They're not ones where one is blatantly better than the other. It's definitely going to be down to personal playstyle. So I've got 3 different variations here of what I would probably use on the Dera Vandal. Now on this first build, we've gone for a sort of hybrid sort of status and pure elemental build. So Serration, Split Chamber and Shred. We got Prime Mutation on here because this is a very ammo hungry weapon, especially when you start adding extra fire rate mods on like Shred. Now normally this would be max, but I haven't got the cores to do it at the moment, so I will be working on that soon. But we've gone for a 2 60% elemental and status mods and 2 90%. So on this we've got our corrosive heat build that we would usually use in the Void or against the Infested, so Malignant Force and High Voltage and Stormbringer, and then Hellfire for the heat. And that brings us up to 53% status, and because this fires so fast you're going to proc quite a lot anyway, so this is actually quite a decent build for that. Now our second build is a very slight change. It's going to be just putting Prime Fast Hands in here. If you can deal with the ammo from the Dera Vandal being used, or if you just want to use the pizzas, then you can switch that out for maybe a Prime Fast Hands. Even another 90% elemental would work in there as well. I like the Prime Fast Hands just because it fires so fast, and it brings the reload down to a much more manageable 1.5 seconds, so it feels very nice to use. And then the pure fun build. As I said earlier, normally this would be maxed, and that would actually help this build way more, but instead of one of those 90% elementals, we got Vile Acceleration. just because, I mean, you can see it here, 24.75 rate of fire. Now this thing absolutely pours on the damage. You are going to need something like Carrier to be able to grab all the ammo for you, or a lot of restores. Like I say, having this max would be way more useful, but this is a very fun build. It's not a very serious build. You're not going to be able to just fire away for your heart's content on this one like you can with the other two, but this is a lot of fun to play around with, and it's just something I use for lower level missions where I'm just blasting around. So this is a very fun build as well. This build here, this first build, Config A, probably going to be my standard build for most things. But like I say, any of these pretty much are personal preference and will do the job just fine. So do I like the Dera Vandal? Do I think it's worth the farm? Do I think it's worth the former? And the answer to that is it's absolutely worth it. Look, I was worried about the Dera Vandal. I've been wanting it for some time now, and I was worried that it wasn't going to live up to the hype. Something about that very unergonomic look, the Vandal design on it, the way it's lit, and the fact that I put a ton of former into the original just meant that I wanted it really badly. And the best thing is, I was not disappointed. The weapon itself is a huge amount of fun to play with. I love that pinpoint accuracy of it, and the need for additional accuracy on top of that. Not only to just put the shots on the head, but to lead the target and still hit the head. I picked up the Dera Vandal, and sometimes you can tell when you're going to like a weapon. You can just tell from that moment that you're going to, like the moment that when you pick it up and you first use it, whether it's going to be good or not. And honestly, I was like that with the Dera Vandal. I loved the sound, I loved the looks, and I loved the way it played. I'm not going to make this weapon out to be something it's not. It's not a top-end weapon, that's for sure. The damage falls off fairly quickly, and puncture is only really effective against the Grineer. But you know what? While it might not do much in sort of the non-Grineer sortie missions, or sort of half an hour into a Tower 4 survival, who cares? This weapon has theatre. It looks fantastic, sounds even better. All the lasers from the weapon, it's a huge amount of fun, and it will do just fine in anything on the star map apart from those non-Grineer sorties, and a decent amount of way through the void, up to roughly 30 minutes into Tower 4 and it starts to drop off. So this is definitely not a weapon to just former or forget. It's definitely worth bringing out and using quite a bit. It's absolutely worth it. So the Dera Vandal, hugely accurate, great rate of fire, but at the cost of poor ammo consumption and fairly long reload. The Dera Vandal, it's a ton of fun in a very little package. Well worth picking up if you haven't already. As always guys, more Update 18 stuff to come in the next few days, and I shall see you in the next episode.